Hello, everybody, and welcome to R-Rated, where today we're taking a look at the finale of... we made it to the end. We were checking out the 6th and final episode of Ms. Marvel, No Normal. We get kind of to see what our final confrontation is going to be after the sort of unexpected, like, I guess it's kind of common nowadays to have the, like, oh, here's your big bad guy. Whoops, twist, there's some other thing going on. But I wasn't quite expecting the last episode to have her just, like, be gone. Didn't think about it at the time, and now I'm realizing, not now, but, like, during this episode I realized, oh, right, they turned to dark crystals because all the Noor energy is, like, that crystalline kind of thing. It's essentially turning them to crystal, but with none of the energy in it. Begs the question, too, is, like, is that what their normal form looks like, or they normally look like people? I don't know. But we get to follow up on whatever thing Najma did to Kamran at the tail end of the last episode. There's some conflicting thoughts in universe, or not in universe. There's conflicting thoughts to me, I guess, based on how it played out. So in the previous episode, Najma says, like, you're right, there's only one way to stop this, and she whispers Kamran's name and sends the energy to him, and he starts having hard light powers. In this episode, Kamala tells him that she gave him those powers to, did she say to stop the rift? Or something? Like, it basically, like, Kamala essentially is saying, like, hey, she gave these to you so that you could help, kind of thing, which... Is that the real... I guess she's not going home, so there wouldn't be a point in opening the rift, the veil, other than just, like, vengeance, which doesn't seem to really be her thing. She just seems like she doesn't give a shit if, you know, the world is destroyed, the normal world is destroyed. Our world, I guess. But, so Kamran is dealing with... Essentially, he has the same kind of powers as Kamala has, except... His is, it basically seems by the end of this like she put the entire rift of the veil into him. Like, he's bursting with energy really badly, and is, like, using his powers and all this stuff. What's interesting, though, to me is, I don't know if this is intentional or if it's just the color palette is playing tricks on my eyes or whatever, but whenever Kamala uses her powers... The purpley kind of crystals that come out from there, they feel like they're objects in the world that move around, and you like it. I'm not describing it very well. Essentially, she creates them from the air, it seems like, and is able to do stuff with that. Whereas when Kamran does it, the way that it appears is sort of different. It seems like it's almost infecting the matter around it. So it'll appear from things, like from the ground, from walls, ceilings. Usually it doesn't seem to just kind of appear otherwise, unless it's from him directly. But also when it does, so the difference would be, it's weird. It's so hard to describe. It's very static. It's almost like it's infecting the literal molecules of the air. When Kamala does it, if she shoots like a beam, it's like the beam will kind of whoosh and, like, move forward. When Kamran does it, it doesn't quite whoosh forward. It's like it starts from here and it goes whoop, and then another piece goes whoop, and whoop, like it's a solid mass that's growing in space as opposed to energy that's bursting out. Like, I don't know if I'm just, like, playing tricks on my own mind or if that is actually what's happening, but if it is, that's a really interesting difference. It looks like something natural versus something unnatural, and it gives it kind of this uncanny quality that I thought was very interesting. It has a really good teal and gold kind of color palette to it, which I thought was really just a neat color combination, I think. I thought that was pretty cool. We kind of have two major pieces to this episode. So essentially, very early into the episode, everybody kind of reconvenes. Kamala talks to her family, and they already know because Muniba told Yusuf, who was overheard on his speakerphone by Amir, and so Taisha obviously knows as well. So everybody knows, basically. And apparently Zoe also knew the whole time, but she didn't say anything because she was like, well, yeah, I'm not gonna out you to the world. That's kind of rude. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And so Kamran is now like on the run from the DODC. They wind up going to the mosque briefly, and then Nakia's like, no, they will search here. You have to get out of here and go somewhere that they're not going to find you. Go to the high school. It's going to be empty on a Saturday. I'm just like, okay, that's a fair point. It's going to be mostly empty. Most high schools are not like completely devoid of people on the weekends, but it's pretty close. Like athletic stuff in general is probably going to have a good chance of being at least somebody around on the weekends. But so they are there and they're trying to figure out a plan. Like, okay, as they enter the building, the DODC essentially figures out that they're there. So they're already like outside the building, and they're like, we got to come up with a plan. So they start coming up with a plan, and over time, like more people keep showing up. Like I think this is, oh no, Zoe showed up is in the high school earlier on. It turns out she films her TikToks in the theater, in the school like theater. And Amir shows up because Muniba sent him to go keep an eye on her so she didn't get hurt. And so all of them are just kind of doing, it's a very Home Alone style wacky plan of like, all right, we're going to get these softballs, we're going to put them into a pitching machine, and we're going to have a big blue barrel full of chemicals, and we're going to do a thing so it does a chemical explosion that'll bother them there, and everyone's going to wear the same thing so they don't even know who they're targeting, so they can't like just, you know, do that. And it's a very wacky, hijinksy, but pretty satisfying kind of confrontation. I thought it was a lot of fun. The coolest thing, for one, we get not a ton, but a few little animation bits in there for the plan, which I thought was fun to have back. We didn't really get a ton of the animation stuff, even at the end. I was a little surprised we didn't get more coming down to the end there, but the plan goes into motion. Everyone's having fun. My favorite is probably the chemistry bit. So like I mentioned before, they have a big barrel, like a big like chemical barrel style thing full of something. And then when a bunch of DODC soldiers basically enter the room, one of them trips a tripwire, and it releases a bunch of stuff into the barrel. And so this is probably something that's easily learned on YouTube, but there are certain mixtures you can make that create essentially an ever-expanding foam blob. Like it just keeps foaming more and more and more. Usually when that happens, it's also very hot, just because it's a chemical reaction, and heat is an easy. I was gonna say extract. That's not right. Exhaust, I guess. Not there's an input and an output to every chemical reaction, and usually the energy itself causes some kind of a thermal output as well. So a lot of times there will be heat during various chemical reactions, just because that's just a natural effect of what happens there. But there's YouTube videos of people that do this stuff, and it'll be like, oh, it'll be like a jug of red juice, and they pour a thing in, and it just kind of goes and like spits out a bunch of foam essentially. This is that like jacked up to 11, and it creates so much foam that it basically fills the entire chem lab, goes into the hallways, down the stairs, and it like fucks up a whole bunch of them. I thought that was a really fun bit. There's a lot of Lincoln in this episode. They weirdly defer to Abraham Lincoln like 2 or 3 times over the course of this episode, and it didn't stand out until so the DODC does in fact go to the mosque, and Agent Deaver, I think, she's like, all right, I need everybody to show me your, and before she finishes the sentence, everybody has their IDs out. It's like, oof. Yep, fair enough. Oof. Oof. And Sheikh Abdullah says, oh God, I forget what he's actually talking about specifically. But he I think it was essentially like, oh, I'll know, you know, if I do what the Lord thinks is right, and then I'm with the Lord and he is right. And she's like, I don't have any time for Quranic scripture. And he's like, that was Abraham Lincoln actually. And it's just like, all right, that's a fun retort on that too. It's like, the very direct, like, we ain't so different, you and I. relatedly, Deaver, the more this show went on, so for one, I thought at first that, so Agent Cleary is the guy, Agent Deaver is the woman, that we saw near the beginning of the show. I thought they were basically on the same page and were kind of doing a good cop, bad cop routine when they were interrogating Zoe. Turns out that's not the case. Like, Cleary's a bit of, he seems like he's a bit of a hard ass, but like otherwise we don't see enough of him to get a clear picture on like his methods, really. Agent Deaver is a prick, and seems to have some thoughts about people. It's kind of, it's never overt or anything, and it's not even like it's necessarily directed at a specific thing, but during the interrogation of Zoe, she starts listing off possible races of Nightlight, essentially, which, granted, like if you're trying to like pin information down, that at least is something that could help, but she jumps to it so fast that it's a little bit off-putting, including to Agent Cleary, who's kind of like, the look on his face is like, oh god damn it. Partly because he did seem like he was actually getting somewhere with talking with Zoe, but she has very grumpy interactions with the mosque. At the beginning of this episode, the DODC is investigating the explosion of the Circle Q, where, you know, Bruno and Kamran were, you know, the previous night, and she gets kind of irritated about, it's like, this is why they shouldn't have powers, and someone is like, they? What do you mean? And she's like, children, and she's like they're ducking around it a bunch, but it's kind of clear what the coding is of this character. She also doesn't get like a particularly large comeuppance in the end. Like, we really don't get a huge resolution there. Like, before the DODC actually goes into the high school, Agent Cleary calls. So Zoe, part of the plan is that Zoe's going to TikTok, you know, live stream essentially through TikTok and tell everybody that the Department of Damage Control has the high school surrounded to try to capture or kill a bunch of kids, including folks who are completely innocent. And it blows up online, goes viral. Agent Cleary calls Agent Deaver and is like, you need to leave there right now. The optics on this are fucking horrible. You need to leave. And she is about to, and then she's like, everybody go get him. Like, she just says, fuck it. By the end of this episode, Cleary finally gets a hold of her again and is like, hey, you need to stop everything you're doing right now. You need to come here. You're relieved of duty. We're sending our own team in to go clean up your mess. Come in now. And she does, and that's just kind of it. Like, it's just like, oh, okay. That was abrupt. Like, I wasn't expecting anybody to kill her, but like, it just feels sort of like, okay, she's probably going to get fired because the optics on this are indeed horrible. And 100 people had to stand in the way of the DODC, you know, detaining a pair of teenagers. Like, basically everybody, the whole community rallies around Kamala. When the DODC kind of closes in on her, they rush in to kind of stand in there and try to, you know, get in the way as best they could, including the local cops. They hop in there and kind of do like a wall, I guess, a little human shield wall. Though they also don't exactly try to stop the DODC either. So like, it's a little bit of a okay. I that is the interpretation that I take, versus there's the possibility that the line and them standing and not doing anything is also them standing in line and facing away from whatever's about to happen. I think it's the former, not the latter, but I could see either one being a possible valid reading there. Yeah, the final confrontation, eventually the rest of Kamala's group gets captured, minus Kamran and Kamala herself, and it's interesting to watch Kamala. So for one, her for what it's worth, her mother made her, or had an outfit made for her when they were in Pakistan, and it's like standard outfit. You can see the texture on the material is really nice. It's got the little lightning bolt thing from the half broken necklace from the previous episode. And the Red Dagger scarf is there as well. And she's got the domino mask that Bruno gave her. And it's a nice little, like, it's a nice visual representation of everyone supporting her and being there for her, that her costume is made from all of these things that she's been given from, you know, close friends and family over this journey that she's been making. But so the two of them are trying to go outside and like resolve this. And there's a lot of like hurt and stress and like, I don't want to say pain necessarily, but like there's a look in her eye that's very like, you know, that this is just a terrible situation and she's just trying to figure out any way to make it stop. Kamran is struggling with the energy that's inside of him and is just bursting out this really dangerous, sharp, extremely sharp. That's the other big difference is Kamala's stuff tends to be concave shapes of like contained crystal, while Kamran's is more, it almost looks like vines kind of, or like a bramble kind of situation. Like it's that spiky kind of like jutting out stuff everywhere. And he's struggling to contain that energy. So he's just like causing all these shards of things to fly out, sometimes on purpose, but usually not. And the DODC is trying to shoot him and Kamala's trying to shield that from happening, and then he's trying to like fight back at the DODC, and she's trying to stop him from accidentally crushing, you know, the innocent people that have all surrounded nearby. There's a lot of kind of, I guess, yeah, pain in her eyes as she's trying to figure out this problem with the fewest number of people getting hurt. And eventually she is able to, she called Kareem, damn it, I'm mixing up. There's Hakeem, Kareem, and Waleed are three different characters in this show. And Waleed and Kareem are both Red Daggers. Kareem, she calls Kareem to try to figure out a way for Kamran to get out of there. And he is not thrilled about it. Neither is Kamran when he finds out too, because he's like, the Red Daggers hate clandestines and they have been hunting them for a while now. And she's like, he will not hurt you. You have to trust me. And the plan was hatched essentially that if he could get to the docks by midnight, they could get him out of the country. And they do. Apparently the Red Daggers have people everywhere. So we have a shadowy, almost ninja-like organization that is not the Hand. And by the end, we see that Kamran has made it to that Chinese restaurant in Pakistan. And yeah, it's interesting. He starts kind of like having these energy pulses coming out of him, and she creates this kind of shell of her own energy so that they can have a chance to talk and do all this stuff. And like, I don't know, it's on the one hand, I think it was nice to see a finale to the show that was not, we got to fight and blow shit up. And in fact, there was very little of the mirror match I was worried was going to happen at the end of last episode. They do go up against each other here and there a little bit, but it's more incidental than anything else. It's really not like a big thing for the episode. It's more of Kamran versus Deaver and Kamala trying to get in the way. But at the same time, too, it does feel like it's at like a 7 the whole time, and it just can't quite get that energy all the way up to the top for the big finale. She does say embiggen, and she does start using stretchy, her kind of something closer to her stretchy powers from the comics. So in the comics, I don't know a ton about her. I don't know that she has these hard light powers, but she has the ability to stretch. She basically more or less has Mr. Fantastic powers. One of the reasons people have postulated that she has this version instead is that it doesn't look exactly like Mr. Fantastic's when Fantastic Four comes out. 2 is because stretchiness always looks a little bit odd when done with CGI. I think that's the reason Reed Richards is wearing a full body suit in Multiverse of Madness instead of having exposed skin, because it just like looks strange when that happens. But in the end of this episode, she does start doing that. She starts using, it's not stretchy skin. It's very much like, oh, It's almost like she's piloting her own personal mech made of hard light material. It's very interesting. But she does get big. She's got big fists that are on the end of her regular fists, and she's got big legs and stuff too. It's an interesting thing there. And the big twist, I guess, at the very end of this is that Bruno winds up telling her, like, hey, I looked over that genetic data again, and she's like, you gotta let it go. It's like, no, seriously, this is important. The power, like, it's not just like essentially he was like, oh, it's not just this. There's a weird thing that I noticed in your genes. It's like it's like a mutation, and you hear a little electric guitar in the very background going. It's like, oh, okay, that's a cute little sting there. Which I think makes the second time this year that we hear the X-Men guitar motif, I guess you could say, because we got that during Multiverse of Madness, almost the exact same little sting there. But so we essentially get the reveal that Kamala might be a mutant, and maybe the first mutant that we're aware of. Because if you think about it too, where you've got all these other heroes, nearly all of them, you witness you literally see how they get their powers, or you're told directly, here's how they got their powers. So, and some of them don't even have powers. Like Iron Man built a suit. Tony did not have powers at any point. He just made a suit. The Hulk got the gamma radiation. Captain America got the super soldier serum. Thor is just an extraterrestrial being from Asgard, so he just has that stuff. Spider-Man, Spider-Bite. All these things, but with Kamala, she's able to use this hard light, and like the bangle isn't really like why exactly. The bangle is sort of related, and it's interesting. So like there was a point where she saw a bunch of shadowy figures in darkness. And it doesn't seem like that. Well, I'll come back to that in a second. But basically, we found out earlier in the season that these powers were not coming from the bangle. They were coming from her. So I'm curious if either the hard light itself or that stretchiness is the manifestation of, or both, that mutation. And the bangle is kind of more just incidental. And like, oh, yeah, it had an energy spike. So it kind of just woke that shit up early. So, and she drops it right away. It's like, whatever. I'm me. Doesn't matter. Nakia says, get in, losers. We're getting shawarma, which is a great double Avengers meme at the same time. Obviously, the shawarma in general, but there was a popular meme shortly after the first Avengers came out of Tony and Bruce in the car about to pull away. It says, like, get in, losers. We're doing science. So I thought that was kind of a cute little thing there. And the reason I stepped away from the talk about the bangle is, so early in the season, we see her put on the bangle, and she has this thing where she kind of falls backwards into this weird void purple realm where a bunch of shadowy figures were looking at her, and then she woke back up in AvengerCon. I don't think that was meant to be everyone by the train station. It had a very distinct and different look to it. The bangle seems to give two different kinds of visions. One was those like quick little Amber sort of visions of like, oh, here's someone from far away. Here's Najma reaching out to you. Here's the train to Karachi. And also, but then there's also that weird purple vision. There was the vision that Aisha had that we didn't even see. There was also the bangle sending her 80 years back in time, or 75 years back in time. And it's unclear which bangle did that, or if it was the two of them together. But at the end of this, we get our stinger where the bangle starts activating again, and she suddenly gets thrown into her closet and breaks down the door and then stands up, and actually Captain Marvel is here. Instead, they have switched places, and Carol Danvers looks around and is like, oh, no, and leaves. And one, that was kind of a fun little thing there. Two, I'm curious if... So first of all, the assumption here is that Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, as she has decided to call herself, because Kamal means, I wrote it down actually. Where did I write it? Kamal means, nope, I did write it down, but it's gone. Oh, it means perfect in Arabic. But in Urdu, it means more like wonder or marvel, which is like, okay, cool. But it seems like they have swapped places. So I'm very much looking forward to whatever point in the Marvels happens where essentially if it doesn't literally start with them swapping, everyone in the audience is just going to be like, all right, how far into this movie is it going to be where they suddenly switch places apropos of nothing? So I'm curious if the Marvels is going to focus again on the Noor dimension. It could focus on the Dark dimension. It could focus on any other dimension thing. But the Bangle is going to be important either way. The other thing, though, is I'm curious if is that Captain Marvel in 2024, or is that Captain Marvel from somewhere in the previous 30 years in between Captain Marvel and now? The reason I ask that is she has her long hair back. And you could just say like, oh yeah, well it's been, you know, a year and change since Avengers Endgame. I don't think she'd be able to grow that much hair in a year. That seems like a little bit too much. I guess it's not like a ridiculous amount, but seems like a lot of hair for 1 year, especially when she had it so short during Endgame. So I'm wondering if this is Captain Marvel somewhere in the 90s, 2000s, or 2010s, and we're going to get another like interstitial sort of thing. It might not be, may very well not be. It may just be a thing that's happening concurrently, but I'm really excited to see what happens with that. The Marvels is, I don't know, scheduled for probably 2 years from now, maybe 3. So it's going to be a little while, but we have so many just like threads just kind of left over. Kamran is now in Pakistan with the Red Daggers, which we learn in this episode that there are other Red Daggers, so it's not just the 2 of them. Deaver just kind of walks away. Agent Cleary's still out there, just doing his thing, I guess. So I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. As for this episode, that's what happens when I you might not have even heard that. It doesn't matter. I'm on the fence. I think I'm gonna give this one a 7. I don't think it's bad. I think it's pretty good. It could have been a little bit bigger and better. Yeah. So a tricky thing for me when it comes to these reviews and doing numeric ratings is I need to remember that it's not just a thing is a 10 if it does nothing wrong. A thing is a 10 if it's exceptional, right? Like a thing that does nothing wrong would probably be like an 8, and it just is a very good thing that did well. A 9 would be, wow, it actually surprised me and did some really unexpected and very cool things. And then 10 is like blows my head off with like how good it is. So I would say, yeah, this is probably a 7. It's missing a little bit of something, but not much. Nothing like too wrong that's being done there. I think it gets its points across, and it does a good job of setting things up for the future. Fun stinger, and wraps up the entire show. And so, yeah, this series kind of had like a little bit of an up and down. Nothing like insane. It actually stayed pretty good in terms of quality. Kind of dipped in the middle, came back near the end. Not a lot of variance overall, I suppose. But yeah, no, I think this was a pretty good show. I had a good time with it. Might watch it again sometime. We'll see. But with that, that's going to be it for this video. I would love to hear what you think of this one in the comments below, or for Ms. Marvel in general. I keep saying Ms. Marvel. The show does explicitly say Miss Marvel, so Miss Marvel. Somehow it just sounds wrong rolling off the tongue. I don't know. But when we come back next time, I'm going to be taking a look at I Am Groot, because he's spoiler, he's Groot. Before moving on to She-Hulk Attorney at Law, on our way through what remains of the MCU and our build up to Wakanda Forever in the beginning of November. So thank you guys very much for watching. I'm going to get out of here. Have a good one. Bye.